Hello and welcome to The Rewind, where we dive into the making and legacy of various films from cult classics to award-winning masterpieces. Today's movie is Crossroads, the 1986 Gothic music drama that stars Ralph Macchio as Eugene Lightning Boy Martone, a young guitar virtuoso and wannabe bluesman who befriends a grumpy old-timer and harmonica player, Blind Dog Fulton, played by Joe Seneca, during his search for an unrecorded song by Robert Johnson, the legendary Mississippi Delta bluesman who, legend has it, sold his soul to Satan and ended up a member of the 27 Club. Directed by Walter Hill, Crossroads hit a sour note at the box office but would endure as a cult classic, especially among guitar players who lauded the film's soundtrack. And joining me today to talk all things Crossroads is author and filmmaker Staci Layne Wilson, whose latest book, The Glass Coffin, a collection of short stories from the Women in Horror Collective, includes Staci in their ranks and has a really great chapter in there. I believe it's called The Reporter. It's one of the kind of like highlights of the book for sure, and it's available now. You can check it out in the links below. And Staci Layne Wilson, I thank you again for joining me on the Rewind. How are you?
It's great to be back. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing really good, especially since we get to talk all things Crossroads today, a film that I think that over the years, especially, I think YouTube especially has really helped this movie because the duel between Steve Vai and Ralph Macchio has become kind of like a big YouTube kind of clip hit. A lot of people will talk about it and watch it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting though how I was thinking about back to how the first time I remember watching this movie, I must have been in my late teens, early 20s around that time. I'm a bit of a when it comes to back in the days of cable TV, I was a bit of a
Right.
a flicker. I like to just I'm on 10 seconds and I switch to the next thing, next thing, next thing. And then I hit this I see Ralph Macchio on the screen and it's a scene where it's him and Joe Seneca and they're talking to the old Scratch who's played by Robert Judd at the Crossroads. And then they go all of a sudden to like these blues hall. And there's Steve Vai, and I know who Steve Vai is, and I know who Ralph Macchio is, and I watched that thing, and that was kind of like the first time, my first taste of Crossroads. And the next time I saw the listing, the next time I watched it, watched the whole movie, absolutely fell in love with the film. And I didn't even know it was around at the time because it didn't have much cachet because of its box office appeal. At the time, internet wasn't really around. I couldn't get, your IMDb's or your Rotten Tomatoes or YouTube's
True.
recommending it. So that
hmm
was the first time I came across it. Do you remember the first time you came across Crossroads, Stacey?
Probably, yeah, probably on cable. I know I didn't go to see it at the movies, but I really liked it because I was already a Robert Johnson fan by the mid 80s because I was a huge Led Zeppelin fan. And
Mm.
then I kind of went into that rabbit hole of, oh, well, let's see who they're influenced by. And then I kind of started listening to a lot of the old blues, American blues guys. And I had the Robert Johnson. It was like a special box set CD of his music, and I think he only made, geez, I think less than 20 or 30 songs, very few that were recorded. So I had that, and yeah, there was just something really kind of ethereal and haunting about his music. And so when I saw Crossroads on my TV listing, I thought, oh, I've got to check this out. And yeah, I watched it from start to finish, and I've seen it several times since then, and just revisited it for this because like as you like yourself, I watched thousands of movies, so I needed to refresh, but it still holds up. It's really fun.
It is really funny, and it does still hold up. And I think that the most incredible appealing thing about all of this is the whole Robert Johnson story. It's really that story is what inspired the writer John Fusco to really bring this to the fore. You talk about Robert Johnson in your book, Rock and Roll Nightmares, True Stories of Volume 1. For everyone, that's it right there. Really highly
Yeah.
recommend people check this out. The link will be on there. It's in the first chapter where you talk about only the good die young, pretty much delving into the 27 Club and such. If people don't know, 27 Club is a select group of musicians who died at the age of 27. So it's got some names in there. Actually, Kurt Cobain, I believe, Jim Morrison,
Sure.
27 Club as well.
Yeah, Jim Morrison, Amy Winehouse, Jimi Hendrix. So yeah, a lot of them and some lesser known. So yeah, I put a lot, everyone that I could find in that chapter. But I always thought Robert Johnson's story was so interesting because there's still a mystery to it. A lot of how he died is kind of lost in the mist of time, which it just adds to the cachet of the legend and the mystery.
If no one knew what the Robert Johnson story was, you reckon you could just tell let the people know just exactly what is the legend of Robert Johnson?
Well, he was a very innovative guitar player, and his hands were exceptionally, like his fingers were very long and dexterous, and it's been attributed to a possible birth defect, actually. I can't remember the name of it. It's one of those 27 syllable medical
Hmm.
conditions, but apparently this made him be able to wrap his fingers around the guitar neck and to bend notes and just sound really different from anybody else. And he caught the attention of all the musicians around him and sort of became a local legend and recorded very few songs. But then he was either poisoned or I think it's either poisoned or stabbed. No one really knows exactly what happened. And he died at the age of 27 and before he could really make his mark on the music world. But he left such an impression in such a short amount of time that he became an enduring legend and inspired so many of my favorite British rock groups like Led Zeppelin, The Who, The Rolling Stones. That guitar driven bluesy feel comes from Robert Johnson.
His playing was so unique, and people even said supernatural to the point where the story was he sold his soul to the devil at the Mississippi Crossroads. So it's like the whole kind of shtick around it. And that kind of Faust kind of story has always been around for a long time, very
Oh,
long time.
exactly.
And
Yeah, the violinist Paganini
yeah,
was also rumored to have sold his soul to the devil for his talent and his draw for women. So, because Paganini had groupies, as did Robert Johnson, and apparently he was killed by a jealous husband or boyfriend
yes.
of someone. So, yeah, so there's that whole like rock star allure before there was rock music. And I think that all just kind of adds to the legend. But the fact is, he was an incredibly talented, innovative musician. So, that's where it really all stems from.
So Joe Fusco, he's the screenwriter for this movie. He was 24 years old when he wrote the script for this. He said that it was for his bachelor's thesis that he had came up with the idea. He had it was 1981. He said his girlfriend was working at a rest home. She said there was like an elderly African American man from the South who had just been brought into the rest home, and he was a harmonica player. And she's like, you got to come meet this
Hmm.
guy because at this time he was a blues musician, but he took time away because the doctor said he had to rest his throat and his back. He had a lot of ailments, and so he kind of went into different areas of screenwriting and such. And on the way to the rest home, he came up with the idea. It's like, what if? This guy is like, new Robert Johnson. What if this guy, sold his soul to the Crossroads? And that's where he kind of came up with the idea of this story. And I think it's such an interesting thing for him because did release a blues album much later in his career, but his thing was always to be a blues musician. Comes up with his screenplay though. And then all of a sudden he's 24 years old, he has his screenplay, and all of a sudden he's like becomes a curiosity to Hollywood. This guy
Mm-hmm.
from New York City loves the blue. He was broke. He was tending bar while going to school and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, he's winning awards for his screenplay. He's being flown to LA, and then Columbia Pictures buy the script for him for six figures. That's a bit of a whirlwind, I imagine, for someone at such a young
I'll
age to
say,
go through that.
yeah, yeah, great start. And he's never stopped working in the creative field. He said he released some blues albums later on in his career, but he still performs, he still plays. Yeah, super talented guy. He writes, he's still deeply involved in series. I know he did was it Marco Polo? I think
Marco Polo,
he
yep.
one of his most recent ones. And my favorite, actually, when I got to meet and interview him, was with Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, and
Hmm.
Hidalgo. Those two kind of horse movies came out around the same time, and I'm a big time horse lover, and so it was really great to connect with him and find out his inspiration. And he's really inspired by American history. So, the Native Americans, African Americans, so he really goes back into our nation's history and celebrates it in ways that are not only educational, but also super entertaining.
He has written scripts for a number of films people know. Young Guns and Young Guns 2. I mean, they're two of my favorite kind of like modern day westerns when they came out in the
Yeah.
80s and late early 90s. Hidalgo, you spoke about as well. I love this one film he did, which I thought was fantastic. It's a martial arts film called The Forbidden Kingdom. He's actually a martial artist as well, yeah, Mr. John.
Oh, that's right.
He is.
Yeah, I'm not into that, but I haven't seen that movie, but yeah, he's multi-talented, but I love how he's able to parlay his personal interest into a career that's sustaining. Not everyone can do that, especially when they kind of come out of nowhere at a young age. Usually people, burn out when they're given a big project like that right from the start, but he's obviously got a good head on his shoulders too.
So you interviewed him, and he's featured in a book of yours where you talk about kind of like cocktails and such, what favorite drinks and kind of
Yeah.
mixes of writers and rock stars and such. I'm curious, in your book, can you just remind us of what the book is called?
Yeah, it's called Rock Tales, and here it is. It is part of the Rock and Roll Nightmares book series. There are 13 books, but this was a charity project for the Sweet Relief Musicians Fund. So all the net profits went to Sweet Relief. So I got some really great recipes from all kinds of rock stars and creative folks. And John Fusco's is called Applejack Whiskey, and it's after a song that he wrote. So it's all there's like a tie-in from the cocktail to a song that means something to the person that gave a recipe. So it was really great to have like my own little collaboration with him.
That's great. Applejack whiskey sounds like a great drink and a great song as well. It's fantastic.
Gotta love it.
Do. So when John says he went to LA and Columbia Pictures bought the script, the first person that was interested in doing the film was the Swedish director Lasse Hallström, who did My Life as a Dog. He did Chocolat as well, and he was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." But then Walt Walter Hill read the script as well, and he wanted to do it. And John said that Walter Hill was an idol of his, and then he instantly became like the number one choice for the movie. Just prior to this, Hill did one of my favorite musicals, Streets of Fire. Are you a fan of Streets of Fire as well?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Diane Lane, you gotta love her. And yeah, it's a really, I haven't seen it in ages, but it kind of reminds me that I should revisit that. Yeah, that was a good one. It was kind of like that. The mid 80s, we had like a lot of throwback music movies. Wasn't that also the one, oh gosh, my memory is terrible, but the one about the Eddie and the Cruisers,
Eddie and the
right? Wasn't
Cruisers,
that
yeah,
about,
yeah,
yeah, that was around
yeah.
that time. And then yeah, so that was a good era for music movies, homages to our past.
Yes, Eddie and the Cruiser star Michael Parday that starred in Streets of Fire. So they're both
Right.
there. One of my
Yeah.
favorite, I think, really great kind of underrated actors are from that era, I think. Um, but when Walter Hill decided to take it on, he said that the reason he did it is because he had a very close relationship with his father, and Walter Hill said that his father introduced him to music. Walter Hill didn't play an instrument, but his father was a percussionist and was a jazz guy, and he tried to educate him in the ways of music and such. So when that movie kind of came along, he partially did it because it reminded him of the relationship he had with his dad, and also going back to that whole kind of Faust story kind of thing. He found that really interesting as well, because it's a story that really can transcend culture. I mean, there's so many ways you can kind of put that story within any type of like culture or genre or such. I think it's just such an interesting stuff to go about it. So when he's on board, it comes to casting. So really interesting stuff that Fusco said in the interview that he did. Some of the names that was attached to Eugene Martone. Number one, he said Sean Penn wanted to play the role of Lightning Boy. Like he said, he
Hmm.
advocated for it. He also
That could
said
have
that
been
Tom
different.
Cruise wanted to do it as well, which would have
Okay.
been really interesting. But they went with Ralph Macchio. A big reason why is The Karate Kid. The Karate Kid releases in 1984. It's a huge box office hit. And I think some people like nowadays just think of Ralph Macchio as just a Karate Kid kind of guy. But back at this time in the 80s, it wasn't only the Karate Kid. He did The Outsiders just before that as well. I mean, that was quite a big film as well. So he was someone with some kind of like on-screen credit and off-screen. He did a lot of stage work and stuff like that as well. And I thought he was just great in this movie. What are your thoughts on Ralph Macchio playing the role of Eugene Martone?
Well, I can't really think of, yeah, how like Sean Penn or Tom Cruise might have done because, um, yeah, I don't think I could see that. So, that's really the only person I can think of for the role. He's kind of a likable, nice kid that you could see kind of going through on this road trip and people, encountering all these different people and either charming them or ticking them off in some
Mm.
cases. But I'm not sure about Jamie Gertz. Her character was a little snotty, I guess you could say. And then she just kind of, spoiler alert, she kind of leaves the movie and then they never talk about her again. So I'm not sure, like the ending, I have to say that the ending, I feel like it could have ended like right when the contract is torn up. That would have been like a more definitive ending to me. I feel like it kind of peters out a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
The Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you'll love. Well, there is an alternative ending actually, which I'll get to later. That
Ah,
they did film. They actually
okay.
filmed two endings for this movie, and they tested both of them. But at the end of the day, Walter Hill decided to go with one ending because, as he said before, in regards to his father was the influence. His father had just passed away during production of this
Oh,
movie, so that was
hmm.
something that was very kind of heavy on him as well. The Ralph Macchio bit of this is really interesting because for such a long time, he's been a guy that has been permanently 17. I think in a lot of our eyes. Number one, he's got great genes. He just looks like a young man all the time. There was an interesting thing that happened late last year where Francis Ford Coppola was given the American Cinetique Award, like Lifetime Achievement Award. And Ralph Macchio and C. Thomas Howell they did a little speech for him representing outsiders. See, Thomas Howard looks like what he should look like, a 60-year-old man with grey hair and a big beard. Ralph Macchio still looks like he's 20 years old. I mean, it's quite incredible how he kind of gets away with that. And I think the thing that this character that Ralph Macchio plays, that he brings really to the fore, there's a vulnerability to him. There's a temperament
Yeah.
as well that he has as being this guy, kid who thinks he knows it all because he's a great guitarist, but he hasn't lived a life yet. He's been cocooned for such a long time, and I think the whole point of the movie in regards to this kind of road trip he goes through is that, and also meeting the Jamie Gertz character, he has to learn about loss. He has to learn about all this stuff. So when it comes to at the end becoming a blues man, like he so much inspires to be, he has to go through all of these kind of like these different crossroads, if you will, all these different kind of like
Mm-hmm.
less life lessons. And I think that what makes it so well is that Ralph Macchio is just a comes there's a fragility about him that I think that works really well. It worked for Karate Kid, because you never think that he's going to win the fight at the end, but he does. It's an underdog story, I think, in a lot of ways, this movie.
Absolutely, yeah. And I do think that you're right. He does have a vulnerability, but there's also a persistence to
Mm,
him, the character. And I think he really just embodies that, where a lot of the character is in the casting, which is, of course, crucial. I, could only imagine, Sean Penn, although he did a great job as Spicoli, which is totally,
yeah.
completely apart from how he really is. Um, but I don't know if he could have done that. Of course, Tom Cruise just kind of has this innate cockiness to him, so that wouldn't have worked either. So it's interesting though that I didn't realize there were some other people under consideration. Jamie Gertz, she was a big deal then, so I think that's probably why she was cast for her name. But yeah, I'm not sure how I felt about her character. It kind of felt like, okay, so we need to put in some romance here. I got to check a few boxes here. I don't know if she was really even necessary to the story, but I thought Joe Seneca and Ralph Macchio had a really believable chemistry together.
Yeah.
Like you could really see like their friendship slowly coming together and one learning from the other because they both learn from each other. Willie Brown learns from Eugene about how to recapture that feeling of youth and discovering and excitement.
When it comes to the guitar playing in the movie, so Ralph Macchio said like he was practicing all the time. Ry Cooder, in legendary blues guitarist, like he was like a big part of like the musical direction of the film in regards, especially in regards to the guitar playing. Had a hand in that. But there was another guitarist named Arlen Roth. He was there to teach Ralph Macchio pretty much how to play guitar. And Ralph Macchio did like 4 hours a day playing stuff throughout the film. However, he couldn't get to the point where he could do the stuff live on film. Like it wasn't him just guitar playing per se in a movie. So that's where Ry Cooder and all these other guys come in. They kind of put the guitar over like he's like Macchio knew where to place the fingers, he knew what strings to hit and all that. Everything else though, like was post kind of like them putting the stuff on top of it. But I still think it's pretty cool that because I saw in an interview he did for this movie, he says he still picks up the guitar, he still remembers a lot of the lessons. So it's a cool skill to learn, and also at the same time, he was prepping for Karate Kid Part Two. So he was doing like a few hours a
Yeah,
day guitar and then a couple of hours a day doing karate. So he's going back and forth
yeah,
between the
that's a
two.
lot to ask of
A lot.
someone, and I don't know what at the budget of this film was or their pre-production time. Maybe he didn't have a lot of time to prepare, but I certainly think he acquits himself well enough on film. It looks fine to me. It's not the Popsy Weber guitar playing,
No,
it's just like this. So yeah, I thought
it's
it was fine. It's part of the believability of the story. I think he sells it.
it's not the fake Instagram, TikTok guitarists we see these days that are just out there in
Oh,
full
is that
force.
right?
It's
I,
oh
I've
yeah,
been avoiding TikTok lately, so I haven't seen them.
it's in full force. They do stuff, and then actual guitarists would react on YouTube, and it's like, no, he's
Oh,
doing it wrong. He's hitting the wrong note. That's incorrect. But there's a lot of that going out there. You
oh,
mentioned Joe Seneca. He plays Willie Brown. So he's a seasoned actor. He was also a singer and songwriter. He performed at upstate clubs in New York. He wrote songs like "Talk to Me" and "Break It to Me Gently." Like he's known in the industry for a lot of this kind of stuff. However, he wasn't the original person who they were like aiming at to play Willie Brown in the movie. They were looking
oh,
at a actual real life bluesman called Roy Dunn. And what happened was that Roy was playing at a place in Greenwich Village. It was called Preachers on Bleecker Street in Greenwich Village, which was near the campus where John Fusco went to. So they went there, they checked out Roy, and who was there? Was someone else named Sonny Terry, who was another kind of like a harmonica player in the movie. Um, so he and them, they all got together and they said, "Hey, let's go to Broadway and see a production of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom." And in the movie, sorry, in the stage play was Joe Seneca. And
oh, okay.
then they see him on there, and then they're like, he was so remarkable. He was a real deal. He was a singer-songwriter. He's an actor. He's our Willie Brown, and that's how he got cast in the movie. So that's
Wow.
pretty cool. And also,
Yeah.
Bob Judd, who plays Scratch in Crossroads, was also in that production. So in that production, they actually cast two actors to be in Crossroads, which I think is pretty remarkable. And I think Joe Seneca does a fantastic job in this movie. So much fun and everything. I mean, I can't see anyone else but him playing that role after you watch that movie.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it really is perfectly cast. And yeah, Robert Judd is fantastic as old Scratch or just Scratch in the credits,
Mm,
but obviously one of the devil's nicknames. But yes, he has this definite charisma about him that really makes that believable. Like, you could follow him down to the depths of hell kind of thing. And I love his lady friend who's at the end scene,
mm,
dancing and all
yeah.
that. That's a lot of fun too. Yeah, there's a lot of color, I think, in the cast that the characters are just so vibrant and alive. And I think even if they have a small role, they don't have a lot of screen time, they stay in your memory.
They do. One of the criticisms towards the film when it came out was that a lot of people were unfairly comparing it to Karate Kid in the older mentor, younger student kind of chemistry between the two leads. So a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
people were kind of saying, "Oh, it's just Ralph Macchio playing Daniel again, but this time he's with a blues man," kind of thing like that. I thought that was
Oh,
very
okay.
unfair because when you watch both movies, they're very different to one another,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think it's just absolutely unfair to kind of compare it that way. I think it's kind of lazy criticism, and I hope, unfortunately, I think that maybe that would have been something that a lot of people didn't want to get behind or watch it. It's like maybe they thought, oh, we've seen this before. We saw Ralph Macchio go through the training under the mentorship of an older man, and maybe that's why it didn't work. Which is a shame to think that that was the reason behind it, because I think it's just really kind of lazy kind of criticism in that regard.
Yeah, I agree. And I was, around when it came out, but I didn't go to see it. I know I didn't go to see it in the theater. I happened to catch it on cable when it was playing, but I don't know. I didn't look up like what was coming out against it at the same time or how it. I know it was not like a huge box office hit, but I don't know if it. Did you look up to see if it was in the top 10 when it came out or no?
It was a bust. It had a budget of six
Oh,
million. It had a budget of 6 million, and it barely made that back. I mean, it was
oh,
just like I think like make 5.8 or something that like
hmm.
afterwards. Um, but it will be like afterwards when the movie really started to find its feet again. Cable, streaming,
Oh,
YouTube, as we said
absolutely.
before.
Yeah.
Um,
VHS and rentals and all
all
that.
that
Yeah.
stuff all that stuff is how it
Mhm.
really came about, and especially like guitarists, like to this day, like John Fusco's guitar players coming up to him from like amateur to professional, just saying, oh man, that movie, can like, I love that film, the guitar duel and everything else. I think as well, just talking from like a post like 2020 perspective, that YouTube has had a big influence on this movie recently as well. I can't count the number of times that I see, and it's just my algorithm, because all I watch all the time is rock videos and movie stuff. So many times, people reacting to Crossroads guitar duel with Steve Vai and such comes up on my feed all the time, and I think that's had a huge effect on the film these days as well. And plus, Ralph
Well, yeah.
Macchio's popular again with Cobra Kai and such, so
The
it all
series,
works out.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And the pandemic, the quarantining, definitely, for whatever reason, more than any other instrument, brought out the guitar.
Mm.
Fender's sales doubled by, even doubled or tripled during that time. And so many people either learned how to play the guitar or relearned how to play the guitar. So there's something about that instrument that has come back in a big way. And this movie is definitely the perfect companion piece for anyone who's interested or loves guitar playing because it's all about that love affair with the music.
Ralph Macchio, I think a lot of karate instructors and guitar tutors owe a lot of money to Ralph Macchio, because he probably inspired a lot of people to shredding frets and chopping boards. I think he's very influential in that way. You mentioned Jamie Curtis a few times. She plays the character of Frances. So Walter Hill said in an interview when it came to her that she had a warmth, but she was feisty. And she had to put Macchio through the experience of falling in love, but then she has to leave him to strengthen his character for the movie's final showdown. And so he decided to go with her. But she's really interested in the fact that at that time, so you had Crossroads, Solar Babies, Lost Boys was a big movie that came out like a year after as well. A lot of people,
Oh
I
yeah.
think, would know her more for the stuff like Twister. She was in a very influential episode of Seinfeld as well afterwards.
Yes.
But do you know what she's doing now? I'm just curious if you know where Jamie Gertz is
It's
up
a good
to.
question. I haven't seen it. Nothing comes to mind immediately, but I do like Jamie Gertz very much as an actor. She was fantastic in The Lost Boys. But I just feel like this movie, I don't know. I can see what you're saying about how the Eugene character needs to kind of have a foil from
Hmm.
his time with Willie. So this is sort of a rite of passage because he has a few of them in the film. So I can see why. But like for me personally, just as a viewer, I would have liked to have just seen Eugene and Willie go through that road trip together. It was a little distracting for me.
When it comes to Jamie Gertz, she hasn't been acting for a while because she is now a billionaire and a sports owner. She owns two professional sports teams, one of them being the Atlanta Hawks. the
Wow, I
NBA
did not know
NBA
that.
team. And I think a lot of the reason why she's in South now is because the experience of filming this movie was very influential on her. She was I think, a New York girl, East Coast girl, and she said that when she went down to the South and did that, she really got a sense of character and a sense of being from that because that side of the country is so rich, the smells, the humidity, the foliage, all that kind of stuff. You wake up
The
and you feel like the
mosquitoes.
exactly. Wake up and you feel that character coming out. So to see now like this New York girl being the NBA owner of a NBA team that's located in the deep south in Georgia, Atlanta, I think maybe there's some parallels there between the two. I think maybe filming that movie opened up to a new part of the country. Yeah, very remarkable woman. I think the last thing she directed a documentary about Magic City, which is like this notorious, culturally influential adult establishment in Atlanta, which has become kind
Oh,
of like
okay.
this place where all the sports stars and celebrities go to. Like when they go to Atlanta, that's like the number one place they go to, not only for like the entertainment, but supposedly their lemon pepper wings are the best in the world or something of that regard as
Okay.
well.
Well,
So,
yeah,
but she did like a 4-part documentary on that. That was the last thing I think she's done, like in the industry though. But other than that, she's very comfortable as a sports owner right now, which I think is just a remarkable kind of like just
it
way
is.
that her
Yeah,
career
an
has gone.
interesting turn. Yeah, for sure.
Very interesting. We talked about Robert Judd Scratch. Unfortunately, he actually passed away only a couple of months after the film was shot. When he
Yeah.
was filming the movie, he said that he wasn't feeling well, and it turned out he actually had cancer. And so he did film all his scenes, and he went home, and he passed away from there. So yeah,
Hmm.
I think it's just fantastic that. Remarkable that even though he was very ill at the time, that he could pull off the performance that he does in the movie because it's incredibly memorable,
It
especially his
is.
laugh. The laugh that he has in the movie is just like it just sticks to you. It's chilling, it's entertaining, but it's an incredibly incredible performance because he plays such a pivotal character in this interpretation of the devil, and that he only has a small amount of time on the film that has such an impact on the film because he is kind of like the master of the universe, is influencing a lot of the things that are happening in this movie.
Agreed. Yeah, he's a very magnetic personality, and that's what you need for that role because he doesn't have a lot of screen time, like you said. So, yeah, someone who has to make a visual impact, which he does, as well as his carriage, his demeanor, his voice, and his laugh.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere. So when it comes to the casting of Steve Vai as Jack Butler, the Devil's favorite guitarist, really interesting stuff here. Fusco said in the interview that supposedly a lot of musicians, guitarists wanted to play the role. The names he listed: Jimmy Page, Johnny
Hmm.
Winter, Keith Richards all said they wanted to play this role. At the end, though, they went with Steve Vai, who was this really up and coming kind of guitar player. At the time, he would be joining David Lee Roth's solo band, so he'll be making a name for himself. Before that, he was with Frank Zappa for a long time, playing in his band. And they needed that one guy who was like that shredder, that epitomized a lot of the kind of like 80s guitar playing, especially, I think. Where I
Yeah.
think those other guitarists, fantastic guitarists as they are, um, they were more kind of blues-based kind of guitar players and such. Steve Vai, they needed that kind of like that supernatural kind of aspect to it. And the you need to be theatrical as well throughout Whitney's performance as well.
Right.
And
And
so, and
also, yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I think that if we had, Jimmy Page or Keith Richards, that we'd be thinking, oh, that's Jimmy Page, that's Keith Richards. So
Yeah.
outside of the music world, Steve Vai is not a household name. So I think any regular moviegoer or somebody watching it on cable wouldn't instantly recognize him and take their mind out of the scene, that pivotal scene in the film. So I think that was a brilliant casting move.
Um, so you mentioned before about what was it the violinist name again? Paganini.
Paganini, yeah.
Paganini. So Steve Weiss said
Nikolai
that he took a
Paganini.
lot of influence from Paganini in the way his eyes were presented and kind of like the hair was kind of presented and stuff like that as well.
Hmm.
And also the main melody that Ralph Macchio plays against the Devil's guitarist and Steve Vai was Paganini's. I think it's Caprice number 5. That's like that kind of thing. That's like Caprice number 5. So again, it comes back to like
Yeah,
that Faust story again, coming all together
exactly.
in
And
this
that
movie.
dueling banjos kind of thing that's become iconic now, there's that feel to it as well.
So shooting was done in Mississippi. They did some in New York City as well. Interestingly, um, John said that there was some moments, some heavy, scary moments, especially in the Delta. He said during those Duke scenes, they were actually filmed but they had to go to different places and they filmed on a sound stage, and they had like a mix of crew. So they had some people who were LA based. And then I had some people who were like from the south. So
Oh, okay.
one night, um, Fusco said that some of our African American camera guys were not accustomed to being called boy. So you can imagine some of the people from the south were saying some of these things to the people from the west coast. And then one night, John
Right.
Seneca and I went out to dinner at a restaurant on the Mississippi River. The place was less than half full, and they will not seat an old black man and a long-haired white boy. So even though this is 86, a lot of this prejudice stuff was still very, very rampant in a lot of these parts of America. And so there were some moments there where things got really heavy and some of the racial uh kind of like bigotry that was happening that people thought were gone by the way of like the civil rights that's still very much around and embedded in these parts of America. So
Huh.
I
Yeah.
imagine that'd
Culture
be
shock.
quite yeah, a big culture shock for a lot of people here as well. But Fusco
Absolutely.
also
Yeah. I mean, I
yeah.
was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I didn't really realize that there was still so much racism in the South until I started watching documentaries and reading books and things like that. So definitely a different world that you step into. But then again, it also helps you kind of relate to the backstory behind Crossroads and what it was inspired from, and why a lot of these great blues guitarists were basically unknown in their own country until the British rock invasion found them and brought them back to our consciousness.
Hmm. There's Fusco also said there was actually some really good moments. There was one moment where the crew of the movie helped rebuild a church in Ballou, Mississippi that had been destroyed in the storm. He said we removed a massive tree that had crushed it and rebuilt the church for a gospel service scene that was cut from the film, and then handed the restored church back to the community. So there was something really cool that came from it as well. A time where everyone kind of got together and built something really important for the community. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that's good. I like
Um,
that. Now, what do you think of Walter Hill? Like, as I always thought of him as like the violent director, the Long Riders and all those movies. So this one seemed like it was kind of coming out of nowhere. But now that you explain how he came to the project and his previous film to that, but did you find any interviews with Walter Hill about some of his rationale for taking this film aside from his father recently having passed?
that's like the number one thing that keeps coming up when he's talked about the film. And also he has like just has a love for music as well, like being educated by like a jazz player like his father was. I think the music part of him wanted to be shown on screen more than anything else. And he did that in the context of Streets of Fire, of course. But I think the music of Crossroads would probably appeal to him more than maybe the kind of like the stuff that was in Streets of Fire. Um, but he was also saying that he just really, above everything else, he liked the Faust story as well, which was real something that really appealed to him. I think for him, though, it is a very interesting choice. But once in a while, directors, I think they want to try to step out of their comfort zone and try something different. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, in a box office sense, it didn't really work for him. But I think overall, if you're going to ask people what their favorite Walter Hill movies, I imagine it might be in their top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it is a perfect fit. It's just, if I was studio exec at the time. I don't know if I would have thought of him as a good fit for this, but it worked out perfectly. I think it was just kind of an alchemy of all the personalities that came together to make this film.
He also said something that was really interesting that I have here. When it came to the casting of the lead, um, so some people say that I just got the thing here, just looking for it. That I got it here. It was on the Ralph Macchio. So what he was saying was that when it came to the movie, if the movie was made today, some people would not want to have maybe a white kid in the lead about a movie about the South and blues. And he did say that he thought that although his original impulse might sound like virtual, signaling, in retelling the story, I think it's better that I don't get that deeply into a core black experience because I would have been way over my head. And he said, if nothing else, this movie is his hymn to the blues. So I think above everything else, it's just him giving tribute to this style of music. And I think that was something that really kind of drove him more than anything else. But like I said, I think that's just part of his personality that never was shown before, and it's something that really appealed to him personally, taste-wise as well. And it worked out for the better. I mean, they could have had Lasse Hallström do it as well. I mean, he's a fantastic actor, but a director, sorry. But I think you do need an American voice maybe doing this film as opposed to an international director. I'm not sure if it would have worked or not.
Yeah, that's hard to say. I mean, Tombstone is the ultimate American story, directed by a foreign person.
Oh
And
well,
I mean, I think
allegedly,
so.
supposedly, Kurt Russell has stated in recent interviews that he took over for a lot of the stuff that was
Oh, did he?
happening on that movie. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, well, there goes my argument. I don't know. I can't beat the devil's advocate on this one. I don't know.
Some trivia in regards to this movie that I thought was pretty cool. So Ralph Macchio kept the yellow Fender Telecaster that was in the movie. So he was asked about it during a 2022 book tour of his. I think he did like a biography, and he said that he
Oh,
still
okay.
keeps the Telecaster. So it's with his. Um, the original screenplay, written by Fusco, is now in the History of the Blues archives at the University of Mississippi. So if you want to see that, it's
Wow.
over there. And also,
That's
just to have
fantastic.
to bring it some kind of parallels here to the Robert Johnson story. So Robert Johnson was inducted to the inaugural class of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in January 1986 while the film was in production. So a little bit of stuff
Oh,
there as well.
yeah. A little, uh, s- yeah. That's really something. Yeah, that's kind of like it was almost meant to be, like all those elements were coming together at the same time.
I mentioned before about an alternative ending or alternate ending.
Yes.
So, okay, according to Fusco, originally in his script. So after the duel, he and Willie are instantly transported back to the Crossroads and begin the next leg of the journey. And Willie dies on the Greyhound bus. So that was the original ending for the film, that Willie dies. Now, like I told you, Walter Hill's father died during production of the movie, and he wasn't comfortable shooting that. It was very kind of hard for him. So he shot an alternate ending, which is what you see in the movie. Fusco didn't like
Oh,
that ending, so they had the two different endings, and so they did it. Had a test audiences screen for it, and they liked the happy ending better as opposed to Willie dying. And
yeah.
while Fusco says that it does still hurt that his original vision didn't come to life, he's still happy that the movie was made and that people take a lot of solace from the ending of that film. So yeah, so originally Willie dies on the Greyhound bus. How would you feel watching the movie and you see Willie die at the end of the
Uh,
movie? I would be very
yeah.
bummed myself.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have liked that either. I just think like it should have ended in the bar where the duel happens, and that just seemed like the divisive, I mean decisive ending right there would have been perfect when he rips up the contract and that's it. So I felt like it was kind of a little too, it just kind of softened the impact of that scene for me when they go off and they're talking and they're gonna travel, or it's like I always wanted to fly in a plane or whatever that last
Hmm.
line is. So I don't know, it just didn't work for me, but I still love the movie. Absolutely does not impact my feeling about the film at all. But yes, if he had died, that is kind of yeah, it would give you a different feel to it. I guess it could feel like he was sort of passing the baton to Eugene,
Hmm.
and one story ends and the other one's about to begin in music. So that could have worked, I guess. But then again, I have a dark soul, so it might have worked for me.
That works more as a 1996 movie ending as opposed to a 1986 movie ending. I think for
It's very true.
the 1986, you need to have that kind of like you need to have that little part at the end where everything's cool and everyone's done. It's the time of Spielberg. It's where everyone kind of has that kind of
Yeah, yeah.
sentimentality. I think that movie was made like 10 years after, during the time of like David Fincher and all these other guys that definitely will
Yeah,
have that kind of ending. Also, when it comes to the duel, the guitar duel, originally it was supposed to be placed in a defunct rail yard in Clarksdale, kind of an underground blues competition between guitarists. So that didn't happen. They did it in a where they did it like the juke joint, but I think it turned out pretty cool as well.
Oh, I
The
love
way
it.
they kind of
Yeah, it
shot that
kind
movie.
of harkens back a little bit. Like I think that this film is kind of the sinners scene, where they're
Yeah.
playing in the juke joint, and kind of I feel like there may have been some influence of Crossroads there.
I highly think so too. I mean, it just goes to show just how, even though this movie, and so many other movies, I think released, around in the 80s and such, they didn't do well box office wise, but the influence they have in so many ways is quite amazing. This movie in particular, I mean, filmmakers talk about it, guitarists talk about it. I mean, I can imagine a lot of people back like in '86 seeing Steve Vai shred and seeing, the Karate Kid doing like all the stuff in the film, would have just went, wow, I want to pick up a guitar and do this. And supposedly a lot of people said this to him. So Fusco said that guitarists like Luther Dickinson, Cody Dickinson, Devin Orman, Dwayne Betts, Eric Krasno, many others actually come up to him and actually say to him that, they reached out and said, "Hey man, that movie was awesome. It like kind of like inspired us to do what we do." I think that's fantastic. So while he says he's okay with the final outcome of that movie, it still does hurt him inside that his original vision didn't get made. And hey, when you go to Hollywood with a screenplay, a lot of time your original vision isn't going to get made. But it's
Right.
still pretty cool. I think that these guys, Fusco and Walter Hill and all these people created something that had such a large influence to the point where almost what 40 years afterwards you're watching something like Sinners and it harkens back to a lot of the stuff that's shown in this movie. I think that's great. It's really good
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely, like we have already touched on, that it is a timeless story and it still holds up. There's a few dated things here and there, but you can't help that. I mean, that's
Mm.
that, but it's charming. Some of those things that may not have, like you were saying, like in 96, maybe it would have been more cynical, but yeah, there's something about going back to that era that still feels good today.
So if this movie was made with Lasse Hellstrom, Sean Penn in the lead, Um, do you think it would come out? It would definitely come out different, right? It'll feel different because I don't know about like I love Sean Penn. I think he's a like I'm going to do a rewind soon about another 1986 movie called At Close Range. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Sean Penn
I
and Christopher
have.
Walken.
Yes.
Fantastic movie. Um, and when I was watching that film, I was trying to think like imagine him being the young guitar player. I don't think it would have worked as well. Tom Cruise, like you said, when I think of Tom Cruise, if he could have been in this movie, I think of Color of Money, and Color of Money wouldn't have, Tom Cruise, the Color of Money style of Tom Cruise wouldn't have worked over because it's too cocky. I think the way that it all kind of worked out is for the best. I think Ralph Macchio is fantastic as well. I can't envision those other guys or anyone but Walter Hill, I think, directing this movie. I think it's how it all kind of coincided. It's funny doing these things. So this is like my 33rd rewind. Going back and talking about all these movies and just seeing how there's so many what's a word I'm looking for? Where there could have been like different ways to not changing lanes. What's it called again?
Like
Where
a
you could
sliding doors moment.
Thank you. Sliding doors. There's
Yeah.
so many sliding doors moments that all of these films can go down, right? I think it's just
Yeah.
really incredible how things just happen to work out, and I think that this one worked out for the best because it could have been Sean Penn with Lasse Hallström, but it turned out to be Walter Hill and Ralph Macchio. I think is just perfect the way it is. They hit the perfect note in this movie.
I totally agree with you.
So for everyone out there listening, if you haven't seen Crossroads, we highly recommend that. Staci and I, please do check it out. You can get it like on Amazon and YouTube. You can rent it as well
Hmm.
through there. And everyone also, please check out Staci Layne Wilson's book. If you want to know more about Rock and Roll Nightmares, True Stories Volume 1, right there. I got the link in the show notes. Really, really highly recommend you read this book. It's one of my favorites actually. I really love the whole kind of rock and roll nightmares kind of like world that you built here, because
Yeah.
all the stories just within rock and metal and blues and everything else, just I think like they can all just be turned into movies themselves. I know Hollywood have tried to turn every story into a movie, but it's just so fascinating what these a lot of these musicians have gone through and some of the lore that captures around him. And Robert Johnson definitely has that lore and that
Oh, for
mysticism
sure.
about him.
Yeah.
And that created what we see now with this film. So, Staci, I thank you very much for your time, and I hope we get to talk again in the future.
Oh, absolutely. It's a date. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.